Welcome to this demonstration video on working with the new census data platform, which is called Data.census.gov. My name is Wing Cheung. I'm a professor of GIS at Palomar College in North San Diego County, and I'm also an assistant director with the Geotech Center. So in this video, you'll be learning how to search for and download tabular data from Data.census.gov, how to search for and download boundary data files from census.gov, how to prepare that tabular data using Microsoft Excel, and then joining the tabular data with the boundary data files and displaying them in ArcGIS Pro. So to give you a little background, for those of you that may have worked with census data before, you may have used the American Fact Finder to download your tabular data that contains the demographic information about the population that you're working with. However, that tool, American Fact Finder, was decommissioned in March of 2020, and that was replaced with Data.census.gov. While the Census Bureau have produced a lot of different resources, courses, and webinars on how to work with Data.census.gov, think of this demonstration video as a crash course on how to use this new platform, Data.census.gov, to get the data that you need into ArcGIS Pro. So one term that you may encounter as you're working with census data is summary file. So you can think of the summary file as what scale of census data do you want to work with. And as you can see in this graphic here from the Census Bureau, you can obtain census data or demographic data or socioeconomic data from the Census Bureau at these different scale or summary level, at the national scale or the state scale or at the county scale or the census tract scale and the block group scale. So to give you an idea as to what these block groups or census tracts are, they are statistical units that were created by the Census Bureau. And you can see a census tract is very, very roughly speaking about 1,000 to 8,000 people in a census tract. And a census block group, right, which is a smaller unit than the tract, has about 600 to 3,000 people living in it. So as you can see in this illustration here at the bottom, at the county scale or the county summary level, right, that can be further broken down into divisions or places, or further broken down into tracts. And then the tracts, as you can see here, can be further broken down into block groups. And then block groups contains, right, a number of individual blocks, as you can see here. So in this demonstration, what I'm about to show you is we're going to be working at the block group summary level. I'll show you how you download that block group level data from Data.census.gov, as well as the polygons that represents where those block groups are located in San Diego County. And the data that we'll be working with is we'll look at the number of households in each block groups in San Diego County that received food stamps in the past 12 months. So let's go ahead and get started with part one, which is how do we get that tabular data from Data.census.gov. So to do that, you need to open a web browser and go to Data.census.gov. So as you can see, here's Data.census.gov, or if I just enter it there, it brings you to the home page. And I'm first going to click on Advanced Search. And here, I'm just going to put in the subject that I'm interested in. As I previously mentioned, I want to look at recipients of food stamps. Now I need to further narrow my search by telling census or Data.census.gov what summary level or what geography type I'm interested in. And as I've said in the previous slide, I'm interested in food stamps recipient information at the block group summary level. So I'm going to click geography here and click block group and click California. And since I'm interested in the block groups within San Diego County, I'm just going to select all block groups within San Diego County. So as you can see in this list, there are a whole bunch of different block groups within San Diego County. And if I hit search here, and this first result looks like it's going to contain the information that I need, this table B22010. So I'm going to click on that. And you can see here, it's going to tell you that the table is too large to display just because of the number of block groups that exist within San Diego County. So I'm going to go ahead and download the table. And as you can see, you can select which year's worth of data you're interested in. So I'm going to download the 5-year American Community Survey estimate that was released in 2018 in the CSV format. And go to download and click download now. And that is how we search for data on Data.census.gov and download the data that we need. So now let's move on to part 2 of this demonstration video, where we're going to prepare the tabular data that you downloaded from Data.census.gov in Microsoft Excel. So we go back and look at our internet browser from part 1. You can see that the tabular data has been downloaded. And let's go ahead and look at that. And so you can see that is right here. If I just open that, you can see within that zip file that we downloaded from part 1, here are the Excel files or the tables that were downloaded. This top one here, the one that say with overlays, is the actual data. So as you can see here, this table has lots of information. There aren't very many columns here, but there are some tables that may have lots of columns. So that is why if we go back and look at the file that you downloaded, there is a separate file here called a metadata file. And if you open that in Excel, you can see this lists all the column names and also what is stored in each of those columns or the descriptions for each of those columns. So you can better identify or in a more streamlined manner which columns are most interesting to you. In my particular example, this 001E, which tells me the total number of households, and 002E, which tells me total number of households receiving food stamps, are the most interesting. And we can go back to the data table, the one with overlays in its name, and just look for, in this case, 001E right here, and 002E, which is telling me number of households receiving food stamps. And go ahead and delete all the other columns that we don't need. Okay. And then I can rename my columns. So this one, I'm going to rename this GeoID. And this one I'll keep it as name. And this one I'll call it total households. And this one I'll call it households with maybe assistants. And delete this description rows because I no longer need it. This doesn't actually contain, right, the quantitative data that I need, telling me the number of household, right? So go ahead and delete that. But before we can move on, we actually need to format this GeoID column. This column right here contains more information than we need right now. Basically, the only information that we need from this column is anything that is starting after the letters US. So we just need these codes right here, these numbers right here. More specifically, 06 that you see right here is the ID for the state of California. 073 is the ID for San Diego County. And then you can see 0152 represents the track number. And then 003 represents the block group number. So that's why I say, really, we just need to strip down this column here and just retain those numbers that occur after the letter US. So to do that, we can insert a new column here. So a simple way we can do this is using some formulas in Microsoft Excel. As you can see here, for this particular example, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 digits that I need to strip out after this S character, right? So here I can enter the formula equals, counting from the right, right, for this particular cell, for the content in this particular cell, A2, retain the last 12 characters, right, counting from the right, the 12 characters counting from the right, or the 12 digits counting from the right end of this cell. And you can see this allows me to just retain those last 12 characters counting from the right of this cell. Now to apply this formula to all the rows in Excel, you see this dot here in the lower right-hand corner of this cell. Just double-click on that. Once your cursor turns into this cross, double-click on that, and that automatically applies that formula to all the subsequent rows in your table. There's one more thing that we need to do. So let's go ahead and create a new row, or sorry, a new column here. And I'm going to go ahead and copy the values that we got from this formula and right-click and paste here the values, right? So that it no longer is a formula, and it'll just paste the numbers themselves into this new column. This allows me to go and delete these two columns that I no longer need. And I'm going to rename this column that I just calculated. Here, let me go back to the top. The new GeoID. And that is how you prepare and format your table. I need to go ahead and save that. And I'll go ahead and save this. Let's just save this to my downloads folder. And I'll call this food aid tabular data or something like that. Now make sure that you save it as an Excel format or Excel workbook. If you save it as a CSV, it will do some changes and the following steps in the demo is not going to work. So make sure you save it as an Excel workbook. And that's it. So now moving on to the part 3 of this demonstration video, right? In part 1 and 2, we look at how we download the tabular data from Data.census.gov. And then in part 2, we prepared and formatted that tabular data in Excel. Now in this part 3, we need to download the polygons that shows us the boundaries of each of the block groups. The easiest way to do this is to open a web browser, go to Google, and type in the search term census tiger. And tiger stands for Topologically Integrated Geographic Encoding and Referencing Database. But for the purpose of this video, just know that the tiger data is telling you the boundaries or the jurisdiction or the borders of these different summary file or summary levels that we have talked about, right? Be it county polygons or tract polygons or block groups polygons, which we're working with in this particular example. So let's go ahead and open a web browser, go to Google, and type in the search term census tiger. And in the first search result, we'll go to web interface. And since we were working with 2018 tabular data, we want the 2018 polygons as well. And since we're working with block groups, right, we're going to want to download block group level data. And here, we'll select California and go to download. And that should start the download process. As you can see here, I already previously downloaded it, so that's why it's there. But it will start the download process for the polygon layers that represent all the block group polygons within California. And now we're ready for part 4. So in part 4, right, what we're going to do is we're going to open the tabular data that we prepared in part 2, as well as the polygon data or the boundary data that we downloaded in part 3, all in ArcGIS Pro, and then join that tabular information that shows us the demographic data, or in this case, number of households receiving food stamps, with their corresponding block group polygon. So before we go into ArcGIS Pro, let's take note of the files we have downloaded so far, or that we have prepared. So as you can see, here's this Excel table that I generated in part 2 of this demonstration. Here is the zipped file of all the block groups in San Diego County in California that I downloaded from census.gov in part 3 of this video. The first thing we need to do is unzip this file that we downloaded. So right-click, extract all to unzip it. Okay, so now that we have it unzipped in our downloads folder, we can open ArcGIS Pro. And as you can see here, I have already created a new map in ArcGIS Pro. And I'm going to go and navigate to my data. So I'm going to go to Map, go to Add Data, and go to my Downloads folder. This is the polygons that we have downloaded. So I'm going to add that. And you can see this shows us all the block groups polygons within the entire state. These are the polygons that we downloaded in part 3 of this video. And we just added it into ArcGIS Pro now. Now I also need to add in the table that I have formatted from part 2 of this video. So let's go ahead and look for that. So here is the food A taboo table, and this is the particular sheet within that table that we're interested in. So go ahead and add that. If you open this table in ArcGIS Pro, you can see it contains that GeoID column that we renamed and calculated, right, based on the last 12 digits. And then the name of the summary level, the total number of household in that block group, and then the total number of household needing assistance within that block group. So now we're going to join the information from the table to the polygons. So let's close this and just right click on the name of the polygon and go to joins and relates and go to add joint. And this is where we need to specify, right, what data we want to join to this polygon layer. So as you can see here, the layer name is this, right? TL_2018. The joint field we'll use, because if you look at its attribute table, you can see that it has a GeoID field as well, starting with 06. This is the exact same type of information that we have in our table. So make sure you select GeoID here. And then the table is going to be ACS table. The join field from this table is GeoID. And uncheck this keep all target features. That way, only those polygons that have data coming from our table, right? Our table only contains San Diego County block groups, will be retained in the output. So uncheck this so it doesn't keep all the block groups, and hit run. And you can see here in the results, it only retained for me all the block group polygons that are present in the data table. So now we can symbolize, right, the different block groups in this map using the values from the table, now that we have joined the table to the polygons. So go to Appearance and go to Symbology, and I'm going to symbolize it based on graduated colors, and the field that I'm going to use is household with assistance. And so you can see here, now this shows me, right, using this graduated color scale, the number of households needing assistance within each block groups in San Diego County. So I hope that you found this demonstration video helpful in teaching you how to download tabular data from Data.census.gov, and then how do you join that tabular data to boundary data from census.gov in ArcGIS Pro and display that information. To see additional demonstration video, please visit the Geotech Center website. Thank you very much.